Open Stage would like to acknowledge the Susquehannock peoples, upon whose unceded land we produce this show. Open Stage commits to the work of dismantling the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism and the exclusions and erasures of many indigenous peoples that continue today. At Open Stage, we also believe that Black Lives Matter, and you should too. That belief starts with acknowledging plainly how the systems we depend on often operate as if they don't. We at Open Stage proudly stand united with Black people and communities of color during this movement of unrest and uprising.
Wow, we are back. I can't believe it. Show 2, episode 2, season 1. Welcome to the Black News Beat. I am your host, Dr. Kimeka Campbell. It has been an interesting 2 weeks, and we want to get right into it. So tonight, we have very special guests. We're going to have Dr. Anju Singh here to talk to us about her life and her run for office. And we'll also have Mr. Leon Laing, who is one of our Harrisburg creatives. So it's going to be a very exciting night. So first things first, let's just have a little chat. Can we bring up that graphic about disrespect? So this week has been interesting. On 2 occasions, our current mayor has taken to Facebook to discuss some interesting happenings about the Harrisburg Manor incident of 2020. And I tried to refrain from really interacting, but I do have a couple things to say. Let your apology be just as loud as your disrespect. One of the things that this mayor did was he perpetuated police violence against Black and brown people in my backyard at Harrisburg Manor. And what we're not going to do is what the mayor did on the internet. What he did was he tried to pretend like he had risen above it all. What he did was he tried to pretend that he now was this great peacemaker regarding that incident. He is not. He is not a great peacemaker, and he is not the person that can now stand back and say, oh my goodness, let's just all come together and work together for the good. No, reparations and reconciliation is what is in order. Reparations and reconciliation is what is in order. You don't treat the people of Harrisburg and residents of Harrisburg and members of Young Professionals of Color in the way you did, and then expect for us just to be like, we're going to forget about that because now you want to rerun for mayor. No, it doesn't work that way. So all I have to say again on that matter is let your apology be just as loud as your disrespect. And now we're going to be talking about what's happening in the city with our segment, Sweeping the Streets. Well, we have a really full docket here today with the Sweeping Through the City. So we have had so much development in the mayoral and actually all the races. So the mayoral race, the candidates for city council, and so many other races. We'll put the link in the chat. It's to dauphincounty.org for you to catch up on every single race that has had candidates kind of fill out their petitions and turn those petitions into the county. So first up, let's talk about who is running for mayor. So, wow, the field has changed significantly. Oh my goodness. Mayor Pappenfuse, current mayor, still running. We still have Dave Shankweiler. We still have Kevin Knox. These names actually have appeared on the petition forms. They have filled out they got their 100 signatures. They filled out those petitions. The date to challenge them, the last date to challenge those signatures is March the 16th. So we'll see what happens after that. But for now, they made it. We also have still running and got onto the ballot, Mr. Outer Banks. And surprise candidate popped in here on the Democratic ticket, Council President Wanda Williams. And we'll talk a little bit about the reaction in the city to that. And then last, but definitely not least, and too much to my kind of confusion, Tim Rowbottom is running for mayor as well on the Republican ticket. So that should be interesting. Next up, we have who's running for the city council seats. And what's really interesting is now, last time I talked to you, we had 10 candidates. Now we have 13. What the hell? How are 13 people for 4 seats? Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think that it's going to be a crazy primary season, but don't forget the primary season doesn't mean it's, if once on May 18, once we vote, it doesn't mean everything's over. So just look out for what could happen after May 18th. But May 18th is the big day. May 18th is the big day. That's when you're going to tell us who you like for both mayor, city council, school board is up. We have county seats, Prothonotary. We have, what else is there? There's several different seats. We also have all of the judge of elections. We have the majority and minority inspectors. So there are a lot of seats open right now. The three new entrants, let's see, that was 10, three new entrants, yes, 13 into this race are Mr. Chris. Mr. Chris, interestingly, was stripped of his title of school board president a decade ago. So I'm interested to see what he has reformed himself into now. We do have Miss Lori's running for city council as well. And we didn't have a picture of Miss Rawls last time, and she is also running for city council as well. So that should be extremely interesting. I'm very happy and excited to be in the mix. There's been a lot of buzz about this. But the next thing I want to talk about is how we are, the entrance of Miss Wanda Williams into the race was interesting because about 2 weeks, maybe now 10 days before she actually announced that she was running for mayor, there was a lot of rumors. And the rumors were, oh, Miss Wanda cannot get into this race because she's going to split the Black vote. Well, what does that mean? So I just do a little research and try to talk about certain things in a more historical light. So one of the things that I and this is very light research, I don't want to bore you guys, but this idea about splitting the Black vote goes back to the Reconstruction era and how Black people were actively, their votes were being disenfranchised by the dominant culture, by folks who did not want Black people to vote, right? So this is a big deal. So Black folks knew and they understand that the power in the voting block was them sticking together and voting as a block. So that's a very important concept. However, what does it mean in Harrisburg to split the Black vote when you have a 78% BIPOC city, right? A 78% Black and brown and indigenous people city. Like, what does that mean, right? We're not talking about a city where we have to, what's the word for that? We're not talking about a city that is a majority folks who identify with the dominant culture. So what does it mean in a city like this to split the Black and brown vote? What does that mean? Well, let's talk about voter turnout. We know the voter turnout in Harrisburg for the last election was 56%. That's a pretty terrible, and I always say this, it's a really shitty turnout. And this means we have to talk to our neighbors, we have to talk to our friends and make sure that they get invested in voting. Why is that? Because these elections, and I'll say it every show until May, these elections are the elections that decide for us how the mechanisms that most closely affect our lives will go. The comprehensive plan, the city budget, how much money goes to policing in this city, and so many other things, right? So these are the elections that affect us. But let's get back to splitting the Black vote. Do the ideas about how Black and brown people were disenfranchised for their vote fit to what we're talking about in Harrisburg when we talk about splitting the Black vote? I say no. I say no, it does not. I say the work is, right? We don't have to blast Ms. Wanda for entering the race. There's two things. The last show, I absolutely recognized, and as did the rest of the city, that the candidates we had running, nobody was really feeling them. So is it Ms. Wanda's fault that nobody's feeling the candidates? No, it's not. So talking about splitting the Black vote when this Black woman is coming into the race seems a little disingenuous to me. Run your campaign, run it well, knock doors, reach out to voters, register voters, and let's talk about turning up that turnout, right? Turning up that voter turnout. Trying to bash Ms. Wanda for running is not the move, right? Not to say that she is a good or not candidate. I'm just saying from a standpoint of mechanism, that's not the move, right? That's not the move. The move is running your campaign in a way that attracts voters to you. That's the move, right? So that's what Dr. K has to say about that. Okay, next, after splitting the Black vote, another conversation that came up because I kind of went on Facebook and said some things about Ms. Wanda. I mean, literally what I just said about that entrance into the race. But the other thing that came up was supporting Black women. And what I thought was really interesting about the conversation was that when Black women and a couple of very vocal Black women in our community were asking for people's support, it was a lot of like, we've always been here. What are you talking about? Who could you mean? Not me, instead of actually listening to the ask around supporting Black women. And I want to say two things about that. What does it look like historically here in Harrisburg? And from talking to different women and reading the different posts that people have put on social media and other places, one of the characteristics of things that I see that Black women are asking for is to be, one, protected. Now, a lot of folks say, well, why are you asking about protection? You have a husband. It's a community effort, right? Having a husband or a spouse doesn't mean that I'm automatically protected in every space. And it is quite interesting that people would think that, right? People put a lot of weight on a spouse protecting you and giving you a certain credence in spaces. That's not always true. And so people are asking, women and Black women in particular, asking for protection. Why? Because when they open their mouths, like we did in the Hearst Manor incident, you are automatically attacked. You are automatically thought of as just this monster. And we are left out to dry, to hang dry, and to take a lot of attack by folks who say they want to support us and then actually end up kind of hiding in the shadows when it's really time to support. So that's the first thing I hear. The second thing I hear is to let us be who we are. Like, don't come in and say, well, you would have had my support, but, right? Let us be who we are as Black women in this city. And I'm not just speaking for myself. I'm speaking for so many of the women that I've had have had conversations with and have communed with around this topic. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in that sector. When you're supporting Black women, what did Malcolm say? He said that the most disrespected and unprotected person in the world is a Black woman. Why did he say that? Did we forget why? Did we forget why? Because Black women support, they put their all, they put their best into so many facets of our society, only to be returned with mediocre and subpar support. We got to stop that. That has to be out. So I'm calling on you, not just Black men, but other people in the society who are supported by Black women. Support Black women, listen to Black women, and defend Black womanhood for a person that's connected to you. Next up, we get to a couple lighter topics. We had a really great Black History Month. Black History Month, I think this year for me, in the middle of a pandemic, was something that I needed to refresh my spirit and something that I needed to just kind of keep me whole. So first, we had our Black in the Berg, Black in the Future events. We had a full week of events. We had amazing participation. And not only did we have amazing participation, but I think people really left whole. I think people really left feeling like they had gotten something out of it. From happy hour to our Topics Tuesday, folks really left those conversations feeling like they had a really full experience. And I invite you to come to a YPOC event soon. We want to continue what we started off the year with Black in the Berg. We had 6 events. They were very well attended, and they really left people with a sense of belonging, which is my whole life's purpose, is making sure that people have a sense of belonging. Shout out to our whole entire executive board of the Young Professionals of Color, particularly Julia Mallory and Cody Burt. Cody Burt's also my creative director. Because they were the ones who chaired the event this year. I didn't have to do a thing. I have chaired 6 Black in the Bergs, and the 7th one came along, the number of perfection, and it was more perfect than I could have ever imagined, and I didn't have to plan it. It was amazing. So thank you to the whole team, especially Julia and Cody, for pulling off an amazing event. Thank you so much. And next, our capstone event that we had for Black in the Berg, Black in the Future, was the Singers Lounge 5th anniversary presentation of the Oxford Wars. It was so touching. If you haven't seen the tribute video that was done for all those who have gone on before us, please watch. It's on the Singers Lounge page. If someone can pull that up and drop it in the chat there, that would be awesome, just to kind of let folks be able to see that. The Singers Lounge is the creation of Eris Smallwood. She's one of our premier artists, premier creatives in the Harrisburg area. We'll have her on the show sometime soon. And the difficulty of pulling off a show like this in the middle of a pandemic was quite the feat. It was broadcasted from Hurston Manor, which is your community space for the young professionals of color. And they transformed the Trinidad Great Room into a beautiful studio. And actually, subsequently after that, Shub of Shub's a Real podcast, Shub and It Real. Sorry, Shub. He actually did his first 6 episodes of 6 different folks who were running for office in the space. So it actually kind of, having the show, the fifth anniversary show at Hurston actually spurred some more use of the space, which has been amazing. We keep that space absolutely clean, especially in the middle of a COVID pandemic. And if you're interested, let us know. You can message me for more information if you'd like to use the space. And I know this is a touchy subject, but Coming to America 2 came out. And my question was fantastic or flawed. There's been a lot of conversation about it in the streets and on the internet streets. And what I think I learned from this experience of watching this movie is that, as many people have said, can't compare it to the first. It's going to be a little different. It's 30 years later. And so I actually watched it twice to kind of get a feel for listening to everyone's critique and then watching it again. So here are my takeaways. 1, Eddie Murphy really does have a long legacy. So I appreciate that, and seeing that 30-year legacy come to life kind of like over the years, watching what we did and how we responded to Coming to America to now to the sequel, I think is just an interesting, observation. Being myself, knowing that it was 30 years ago, I feel a little old now, but that's okay. But the other thing that I think was really interesting about it is the themes. So we had this theme of women empowerment. We had this theme of nostalgia. We had these themes of Africa. We had these themes of African American. We had all these different themes that were coming to the surface. And we also know that the writers of this, Kenya Barris and some other folks, have, to me, I think Kenya Barris's work is just interesting. I am not a fan of Kenya Barris's writing. And so it really shone through in the sequel how limited his writing is. For one, you have 3 beautiful daughters of a king and queen who were absent for most of the film, except for to show them the sisters were all fighters, which is awesome. I'm not against that. But there was no character development for the sisters. The son, he just fell flat on screen. Not a fan. Lamel, I think his name was. Or Lavelle, I don't know. To my point, not memorable. But what I thought was interesting was the young ladies, in my opinion, as a woman who's watching these things, yes, it's supposed to be funny. Oh, just take it for what it is. You shouldn't put so much stock into it. But I feel like a sequel that was 30 years in the making could have brought us into the 21st century. That's my personal opinion on that. I feel like we were kind of left maybe maybe late 99s to the 2000s and not really bringing these themes and characters and attacking some of the stereotypes that were presented in the first film in a meaningful way. But all that put aside, I did laugh. I thought some of the scenes were very hilarious. I thought Leslie Jones did an amazing job. I thought it was interesting to see Arsenio after all these years. So I thought my favorite scene was actually the funeral scene where the father had his funeral before he died and then died at the funeral. Hilarious. So there were really awesome elements to it. But I did leave wanting. And that's a little bit about what I thought about the movie. All right, let's see what's coming up. Oh yes. So let's take one last segment. A piece of this segment, one last topic in this segment. Last week, we talked to you and we were going to talk about the cost of the Hurston Manor incident. I don't know if you have the video pulled up, Basir. You do? So the first thing I want to talk about is the big lie that led to a waste of money, right? So the big lie was this.
Well, this is ridiculous.
All I need is your name and I'm out.
My name is Kimeka.
She was refusing to give me her name.
My name is Kimeka.
The homeowner refused to identify herself.
My name is Kimeka.
I am basing my comments on what I saw on the tape.
Can you spell your first name for me?
K-M-E-K-A.
Well, this is ridiculous.
Every time I watch this, you guys, I get a little Okay, that's how I feel, like a little, because this is the big lie that led to this waste of money. Can you put up the next graphic, please? So we have a whole, so some of you may not be able to see that, but I want you to see the big number at the bottom, $2,018. There were 4 police officers involved. There was a police attorney involved, right? Because the police officer was allowed to represent himself in court along with the supervisor. City council members were involved, the judge, the chief of police, the mayor, the DA, the solicitor, the county DA, and the city solicitor. All of these people's time was wasted for us to go to court, for the judge to tell everybody that you can't have, okay? You can't have, I want everyone to remember this, and I know you guys probably think I'm talking about this too much. You cannot be accused and arrested of disorderly conduct in your own backyard. But the important part here is the $2,018, and we're doing a rough estimate. It really depends on whether those police officers' salaries were higher or lower, and the other folks' salaries are higher or lower, and how much time they actually spent. We're estimating, right? We're estimating how much time it took to prepare a case, find a case that they tried to use against us that was irrelevant. We're estimating that. But the total cost here was $2,018 at least. We're saying at least, right? Let's go back to the first graphic. We're saying at least because we know that there were other people involved in other costs, not to mention cost to me as a person, cost to my friends who were in that backyard. So again, cost to my husband, cost to the people, actually the other employees that were at the jail that night. There were so many costs involved in that. And so my question to you is, how do we want our city government to work? How do we want the entities that are responsible for keeping this city safe and for helping us to live full, productive lives as residents of Harrisburg City, how do we want them to spend our money? The police were just awarded another $1 million on top of what they didn't spend before the year before. And we're expected to believe that completely wasting residents' time on bogus charges is how we should run the city and how we should treat residents? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I want to say to you, these elections are coming up May 18th. Think about a couple things. How do you want your tax dollars spent? Do you want to spend $2,000 on, and I'm just one person who can illuminate this. I'm just one. Do you want shitty representation that waste your money and grandstands? Because it wasn't just the mayor, right? It was a whole slew of people who got behind this huge lie. The lie that I did not identify myself. It was a lie. Let's just make sure that's clear. Do we want that? Is that what we want? Do we want a whole city government that stands behind lies? Because if you're gonna lie about this, what else are you going to lie about? What else is not on tape? That's just a question for you. Think about that for May 18th. All right. Well, next we do have, I think that's going into our commercial. So we're going to put up that graphic for our community engagement, and then we'll be come with a little commercial. Okay, so go ahead to my first commercial there. So I had a very interesting experience. I went to the Black is Beautiful Expo last weekend. It was also during Blackenberg, and I was so impressed. And first of all, the love in the room was amazing. There were so many different people who came together safely, of course. Tables were spaced properly, and all these beautiful things were happening. And there were so many vendors there from all over. We had people come from Baltimore and other places to show us what they had. So go on to the next graphic there. And I want to talk to you about supporting some Black businesses that we had there. The first is Dreads and Heads. Dreads and Heads, I don't know if you can see the graphic there, but Dreads and Heads, they're out of Baltimore. And we are sitting in the expo room at the Crown Plaza, and we are all like, what is that smell? And so I walked past the table, and you can't smell it on camera, but everyone in the room has smelled it, and it smells amazing. And this is mango soap. So this whole bag of mango soap I got for $10, along with this beautiful room and pillow mist. It is called Vanilla Rose. I love vanilla and I love rose. And so those two things are what I got from her, along with some other hair stuff that I love. And so I want you to check out Dreads and Heads. They have beautiful things. If we have an expo again, I'm sure they'll be there. because you are missing out if you don't have this beautiful room spray and this mango soap. So I just want to let y'all know that is something that you should try out. All right, well, that's it for my first commercial. Right now, coming up, we have a very special guest. Dr. Anju Singh is here with us in the studio. Dr. Singh, how you doing?
Hey, good evening, Kimeka. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's wonderful to see you. Tell me how you want to be addressed. Do you want to be Dr. Singh, Anju? It's up to you.
Between you and me, Anju's fine.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. It is wonderful to have you here. I hear that you're running for office. Tell us about that.
You want the long version or the short version?
What you want to, either one you want to tell.
I'll give you a quick background about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was born and raised in India. My father served as a doctor in the Indian Army. He served in the Indian Army for 30 years. So I'm a Army brat. We moved around every few years. And different states in India, almost like a different country. They've got different languages, different cuisine, different clothes, different festival, different dance and music. So diversity in a way was sort of woven into the fabric of who I grew up to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I come from a conservative, traditional family. My marriage was arranged, and the arranged marriage took me out of India, brought me initially to...
Marriage was arranged?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Means I don't get to pick my life partner. My parents pick him for me based on things like religion and caste, and family values and education and certain criteria.
Wow. Okay.
I did go to medical school, so I'm trained as a doctor. I did my residency in ophthalmology, which is an eye surgeon. And then after my marriage, I first went to Canada. My ex-husband was an engineer. He's now my ex-husband. He was an engineer, and he wanted to come to the U.S., but his visa to the U.S. initially was denied, and we ended up going to Canada. And in Canada, while he was pursuing his PhD, I was able to continue my career as a clinical fellow in neuro-ophthalmology. So I was seeing patients who have neurological disorders and other brain conditions that affect vision.
Wow.
And after he finished his PhD, he decided to come to the US. At that point, I was blessed with my son. He was just short of his second birthday when we moved to the US. Coming to the US, I came on an H-4 visa status. That is, I call it handicap to the fourth degree visa status.
Listen, you bring up a good point, because a lot of did you come as a spouse?
Yes.
And that's the spousal designation, is that correct?
That is correct.
So I did a little bit of study on that. I actually wrote a paper on it for international graduate student spouses. But what a lot of people call those visas, they call them the dead body visas.
And if I didn't have the tenacity I have, I would literally be a dead body today. Just a trigger warning for people who may be listening. And that's a huge difference between my background. And all this while I thought it was just me. It's only recently I realized I'm just another little piece in this huge wave of racism in the country, racism and sexism. So I got equal opportunity growing up in India, because even though I come from a traditional and conservative family, my father and mother, they were very broad-minded. They believed in educating. We invest in education big time. Like overall, as a community in India, we invest in education, but my parents would put education above everything else, including wealth, including their own personal pleasures. And I mean, being an Army officer, my father was a salaried man. He didn't have a lot of money, but he invested everything he had in our education.
Wow. Wow.
So I enjoyed the privilege of equal opportunity growing up in India. And it's not necessarily available to everyone. So I'm not painting all of India in a broad stroke, but I was blessed and I was privileged to enjoy equal opportunity because of my family.
Absolutely. So fast forward for me a little bit and tell me about the trigger warning part that we were going to talk about. So you enjoyed this opportunity. Tell me about when you now experienced some hardship.
Right. So I enjoyed equal opportunity in India. I enjoyed equal opportunity in Canada, because their rule was whatever visa status one spouse gets, the other spouse gets the exact
Mhm.
visa status. So whether my ex-husband wanted it or not, whether he liked it or not, I had equal status, which allowed me to pursue my career.
Mhm.
So I got equal opportunity because of equal status.
Mhm.
Come to the US, I was on H4 visa status where he was on H1 visa status.
Mm.
That's where the difference in power, difference in position started. And that, unfortunately, is documented to bring out power control issues, is documented to precipitate violence and domestic violence. And in hindsight, I'm a textbook figure, but in real time, I didn't see it coming. And I was amongst those people, again, if you've done research on domestic violence and abuse, it's present in all socioeconomic status, but it's the people who are from upper middle to upper class who actually try not to talk about it because they feel ashamed about it. So anyways, because of the differential status, because I was a stay-at-home mom, I got called names. You're a loser, you're a quitter, you don't do anything, you sit on your ass all day. And I was a very ambitious person. So from being unhappy and frustrated from being at home, and as much as I love making my Indian food and I love taking care of the home, and I loved spending my time with my son, that was just a small piece of who I wanted to be. There was all this other stuff that I had invested all my years in my education that I wanted to do, and I couldn't do. So that I was very unhappy and very frustrated. And again, just a trigger warning for those who are listening, I lost my brother to suicide. So that was a big shock for the family. And my ex-husband chose that time to tell me on a daily basis, your brother was crazy, that's why he committed suicide. You come from a crazy family, you need to go commit suicide too, so you can get out of the way and I can go get married again and start my life again. So put me in a situation, I'm away from home, away from friends, away from family, my education is not recognized, I'm not allowed to do what I invested my entire life to do, and I'm trapped in a house with this man. And I heard this thing over and over and over and over again for almost 2 years, to the point I started internalizing and seeing sense in it. That, yeah, this is it. If I can't be happy just cooking and cleaning all day long, then this is life. And if you don't want this life, then end it.
Oh my goodness. So how did you come out of that, Dr. Singh or Anju? How did you come out of that?
I literally had to call a crisis hotline and get support. That's literally how I got out of it. And it was not easy. And I'll be honest with you, I was very naive at the time. I thought, hey, I'm educated, I'm intelligent, I'm hardworking, I'm in the land of opportunity. And I was so naive. So I thought, okay, I'll end this abusive marriage. It ended in domestic violence, actually. I had 2 broken fingers. My ex-husband was evicted from the house. I had a PFA against him. But I was still hopeful.
After all that.
That you know what? The new beginning. This is the new beginning. This is the new beginning. I had that hope because I thought I'm in the land of equal opportunity. I'm in America. Here women enjoy equal status. I'll be fine. It'll just be a rough patch. I have to go through, put myself through school again or whatever. I just thought it's just going to be a rough patch and I'll be fine. The reality of being an immigrant, a female, a woman of color, had just begun at that point.
Absolutely.
So I put myself through grad school, got my PhD in molecular medicine at Penn State.
So you're a double doctor.
I call myself a Dr. SquarePants.
Dr. SquarePants.
And for the Republicans out there, I'm a medical doctor, I'm a PhD doctor, and I've given birth to 3 children, so I'm a doctor that way too.
Period. I love it. So okay, so let's transition a bit because I want to hear. We gotta wrap it a sec, but I want to hear about what you're doing now. You are running for an office that I know nobody's heard about. So I want you to tell us more about this office because it is one of the most important offices, I think, in the county. So tell us about it.
So basically what happened was, now that I know where I am, now that I realize the truth of my status and status of women, status of colored people in the country, and especially after Trump's presidency, I was like, we got to do something. We can't sit back and just complain and expect others to do something. So I knew I wanted to run. I knew I wanted to get involved. Up until Trump became president, I didn't know anything about American politics, like nothing. I knew Barack Obama was president. I loved him. I was very happy, and I believe he's the best president we've seen in our lifetime. But I didn't know he's Republican or Democrat and who's right and who. I didn't know that. But over the last 4 years, I've been starting getting myself a little more educated. So when after this past election just got over, the Democratic Dauphin County Democratic Committee member reached out to me and asked, "Do you want to run?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's run. I'm just not sure where." So we went through all the positions that are open. We hashed out the pros and cons, and I'm like, "Yep, I'm going to run for Prothonotary."
And what's that?
So, and that's the most common question I've been asked since I announced that I'm running for Prothonotary. Most of the people who sign my petition, that's the first question they ask. What's a Prothonotary? So the word Prothonotary is actually derived from the word prothonotary, like the first notary. They notarize papers. But technically in the courthouse, the Prothonotary's position is mainly clerical position. So all civil cases, not criminal, all civil cases have to go through the Prothonotary's office. They receive them, stamp them, keep the records. Keep the records. So change of name, marriage license, divorce license, custody, title search, a lot of that kind of stuff goes through even PFAs go through the Prothonotary's office.
Wow. Okay, so that's exciting. So how do you feel about your run so far?
Well, because my background is education, I'm an adjunct faculty at HAC. I've also been an adjunct faculty at Penn State, and I've taught at a few other institutions as well. My goal is more about education awareness, letting people know who is a Prothonotary, what do they do, and
Absolutely.
a good segue from what you were just talking about, how do people want their tax dollars spent?
That's right.
Not many states in the country still have Prothonotaries. Not many counties in Pennsylvania still have Prothonotaries. The few that have them, these are not elected positions. So a lot of the row offices, the right-of-way offices, these are elected positions. And a good question and open for discussion is why do these positions still exist? Why are they still elected position? Why aren't they assigned to professional people? And why aren't they getting paid for the amount of work they do? How is it okay today, especially today with the pandemic, with everything we've got going on? How is it okay for them to make full-time salaries on our tax dollars when many of them are in their office only part-time and spending a lot of their time pursuing their own private law practices and or developing their own properties while they are getting full-time salary with benefits?
How much does a Prothonotary make?
I'm told in the ballpark of $60,000 per annum.
$60,000. Wow, that's a full-time salary. Wow.
Tell me a job you can do for that kind of money. Showing up to office, maybe 3 days a week, maybe 3 days a month. Like recorder of deed is another one of those positions. Wow. They are not in their office full-time. And the Prothonotary has a staff, a team of workers that actually do all the work.
Wow.
And then here's the other killer. We're in the 21st century. A lot of the courthouses, federal courthouses, they've been digital for a long, long time.
That's true.
Our Dauphin County is still decades behind.
Wow.
During the pandemic, every single institution, every single organization pivoted overnight, adjusted, adapted technology, worked overtime, worked overnight, worked extra hours without pay, including me as a professor at HAC. I bought my webcam, set up another monitor. I'm on my dining table.
I'm telling you, we are all digital professionals at this point.
Exactly.
So I am so happy to
Prothonotary office do for the pandemic. They're still doing everything on paper.
Wow. So I'm glad you pointed that out, and I'm glad that I want to have you back at some point. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for telling us about yourself, and thank you for letting us get to know you. Will you promise me that you'll come back and talk to us some more?
Yes, Dr. Kimeka Campbell.
Absolutely, Dr. Singh. It is wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for coming. It's wonderful to get to know you. And I actually hope to hang out with you soon. That'd be cool.
I look forward to that. Thank you so much for the time.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Have a great night.
Take care.
And we will be right back. We're going to have it's me. We'll be right back to me doing a commercial, right? we're going to do jump into our creativity and culture and creativity segment. And I have a little something to tell you about a second person that I met at the the Black is Beautiful Expo. So back to the Black is Beautiful Expo. I can't tell you what a good time I had. It was 2 days. It was beautiful, inspirational talk. It was all these vendors, and I am a big sucker for candles. So I no surprise to you guys, you're not gonna be surprised by the flavor of this candle. It's vanilla. And first of all, the packaging is A1. This is my friends from Bless Beauty. Bless Beauty, a Bless Beauty collection. This is their new vanilla scent. And she told me that she was going for more of like a male centered, kind of catering to the everyman look for her candles. But I found it kind of wonderfully gender neutral myself. I thought it was fantastic. So check her out. Her IG is Bless Beauty _ it's 2 underscores. And check out some of her stuff. She also has body butters. She has a whole collection of wonderful things to help you practice self-care. If you haven't been to Tipsy Tuesday yet, you should come, because last night they were giving away gems about how to do self-care during this pandemic. And one of the tips was that you can take a nice soaking bath by candlelight in your bathroom. So I am now fully stocked with candles from Bless Beauty so that I can practice that. Shout out to my friend Lou for giving us that tip. So I want you to kind of try that. Are you looking for a little way to self-care? Get yourself a little candle from Bless Beauty and try out that candlelit bath time in your bathroom very soon. Okay. Well, those are my 2 commercials. You won't get any more commercials out of me. But we do have another special guest. This person is very cool. If you don't know Mr. Leon Laing, you need to get to know him, because he has such a wonderful depth and breadth of work that he's been doing in this area for over a decade. Please welcome Mr. Leon Laing. How you doing? Oh, he might be frozen.
How's it going?
It's going good. How are you? There's a little lag, so we'll There's a little lag, so we'll give it a little time.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, it's great to have you. So, Mr. Laing, tell us about yourself. What do you do?
Well, back in 2003, I started a online business called Vigor Online. It actually started off as a newsletter, because I'm going to date myself, but back in 2003, the internet wasn't, websites weren't really that prevalent. So for me to try to launch a site and hire a website designer and stuff like that, I just didn't have that, that overhead. So it started off as a newsletter, and then within like 5-10 years, it became my blog, which brings me to now, where I've been, doing this, like I said, since 2003, of covering mostly music in the Harrisburg and Philadelphia area.
Absolutely. And one of the things I like about your Vigor Online blog is that it's not just covering the music, but the pictures are phenomenal. Who takes those pictures?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry about the little lag. There's a little lag. Did you ask me a question?
I said the pictures are phenomenal. Who takes those pictures?
Oh, that would be yours truly. So yeah, believe it or not, we started Vigor Online. I was focusing more on the writing piece. I was, just focusing on the stories. But every time I would attend an event, I'm like, well, I need photos to accompany these stories. I even remember dating back to going when I was at Hack. I was writing for the student newspaper, and I went to the Million Man March. And I told the editor, I said I want to cover this Million Man March. And again, I know I needed some photos to accompany the story. So I took my dad's Minolta film camera, and that's pretty much how it started. And from there, once digital cameras came on the scene, I, picked up my digital camera and, started focusing, a little bit more on photography. So which brings me till now.
Wow, that's awesome. So tell me about, you have covered, so this is years now. You've been covering different creative persons and all kinds of different types of persons for since 2013. So out of all those years, and you can give me a couple, what are some of your favorite stories that you've covered or some of your favorite pictures that you've taken?
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I go way back to 2003. And then by 2009, I started a blog. But yeah, I would say some of my most memorable stories have been, as I had told you previously, prior to this morning, the Barack Obama. That was like one of my favorites.
Ooh, tell me more about that.
Back in 2008, Harrisburg twice. Yeah, so the first time Barack came here was in March of 2008, presidential campaign, and that was at the Forum, the Harrisburg Forum. And that was amazing. I was there with all the major networks, NBC, CNN, and it was just little old me with, this blog, Harrisburg. But that was amazing because I had a feeling that Barack was going to win. And me being, really passionate about Black culture, it was just amazing watching history take place in my own city. So, and then the photos just, especially for, with a film camera, I was still impressed with how the photos came out. The lighting was perfect there. And, Barack is just, very laid back, cool. So it was, he was smiling. So it was pretty simple, capture his personality.
Yes, that's awesome. I brought up the picture here of Barack Obama so we could all see it.
Yeah, there.
And this is such a great shot. I love it. I love it. Very awesome. Great job. Great job.
Thank you. Yeah, he was looking down and he was smiling. And again, I thought that was I was able to photographer, you try to catch someone's personality. So he has that approachable personality. So I thought that photo there I was able to capture
I love
him
it.
best.
I love that. So what's one thing that we should know about you?
One other I'm very passionate about what I do. Just give you a little background of myself, like the former guest. I too have some. My parents are Jamaican. They're both from Jamaica, and I was born here in the U.S. So my background has turned out. I used to travel often when I was younger to everywhere from Jamaica to London, Canada, New York often because Jamaicans immigrate to New York. So that had a lot to do with just the way I saw the world and how I became cultured. Married, a beautiful wife, and the son. Son was actually born on 9/11.
Wow.
My son. So, but just bigger online. It's I wanted to fill a void because when I graduated from Westchester University, which is right outside the Philadelphia area, there was really no one writing about the arts community and the Black community. There was really, we have the Patriot News, but they weren't really doing anything. And then rest in peace to Vera Cornish. She was covering the Black community But I still thought that there was no one really like covering the younger, tapping into the younger audience, the younger Black audience. So, that's where I thought I would come in and fill that void.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. That's wonderful to hear. I really thank you for coming and telling us about yourself. I know that we're having a little bit of a lag. I would love to have you back to hear more about your work. I'm going to plug you a little bit. Visit vigoronline.com. Beautiful stories and beautiful photos. It's a pleasure. Thank you for reaching out to be here with us tonight. I am so happy
Thank you.
To actually get to see you in person, because I think we messaged before like 3 years ago and just now getting to interact in this way. So this is awesome. Yeah. So this is awesome. Thank you so much for being with us. And we hope to have you back again.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you thank you again for being here. All right. We're going to go into our next and latest and last. It's been an interesting night. I feel I want to point out some themes that we were seeing tonight. We talked to two immigrants, folks who migrated here, families migrated here from different countries, folks and family. And my family I am also from a family of immigrants as well. My family is from Trinidad and Tobago. My husband's family is from Trinidad and Tobago as well. And we are first generation Americans. And it is always an interesting, like Leon is, and it's always interesting to hear other people's stories about coming to this country and making something out of the experience of being here and being a new person here in the country. So my mom, shout out to my mom, her birthday was February 26th, and I wrote a very moving tribute to her. I'm going to write a book about her at some point, cross my fingers. So we're almost done here. Thank you for tuning in for another show. I appreciate you guys so much. We're going to be introducing another segment coming up soon called Ask Dr. K, or Ask, either one. I want you to email me at askdrk@kimeka.org. You can also check out my website, kimeka.org. Ask Dr. K at kimeka.org. Any questions you want. And in the last part of our segment, as the show develops, I'll be answering some of those questions. But for now, I want to say two things before we go. I'm really happy that I'm seeing so many people go out and get vaccinated. I am happy to be fully vaccinated. Second shot took me down for 2 days. I had the Moderna, but after those 2 days, I got up feeling like a spring chicken. We are definitely still in the middle of a pandemic. I encourage anyone who has the ability to get vaccinated so that we can enjoy each other in person again. If you need information about how to get vaccinated, please feel free to inbox. I'm connected with several people in the community who are doing work in those different healthcare areas. So just let me know if you need help figuring that out. Several people have inboxed me already. Feel free to inbox. That's perfectly fine. And the last thing I want to say is, and I'm still working on a sign off, so we'll see what happens. But it was really on my heart today to tell you all to keep encouraging yourselves. There are certain times in this world where folks are not going to encourage you. They're not going to speak over you. They're not going to speak good things into your life. So as we sign off tonight, encourage yourself. Speak good things over yourself. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a wonderful night, everybody.
Well, this is ridiculous.
All I need is your name and I'm out.
My name is Kimeka.
She was refusing to give me her name.
My name is Kimeka.
The homeowner refused to identify herself.
My name is Kimeka.
I am basing my comments on what I saw on the tape.
Can you spell your first name
Sure,
for me?
K-I-M-E-K-A.
Well, this is ridiculous.